So, all right. So let me just give you a little tiny picture here. The alimentary canal. You throw up here, or you purge out a bunch of loogies. That's like throwing up this way. When you do diarrhea or poop, you're throwing up through your ass, okay? Your body's getting rid of stuff. You can call it diarrhea. People link diarrhea to dehydration because you're losing a lot of electrolytes. While that may be true, there's a reason why your body is purging out whatever's inside, because yes, it needed to capture the electrolytes and purge out the offending demons that are inside. Then of course you have to replenish your electrolytes. So when you're sick, it means you're already at a deficit, forcing the body to have to go and galvanize electrolytes to purge everything out. And so you won't be doing that once you get to a certain relative equilibrium, not rest in peace equilibrium, but relative equilibrium. And then when you do get exposed to new viruses, you'll just be blowing out loogies and hawking up stuff, if that is in fact what the future is for those who finally get to a point of where they've reversed or they purged all their demons. And that will be different for everybody. It's going to take time because it is a psychological purging. It is a physical purging. It is an intellectual purging. It is definitely now finally deprogramming. You're not under mind control, biological control, physiological control anymore. And so it's like so perfect now to finally focus on Silicon Valley, finally focus on the engineering of realities. And so while you have the physics, the biophysics, the genetic engineering in the Northern California, then you have the outcome of genetic engineering in Southern California. It's perfect. And then you see the planet with all the different archetypes that are factory made out of California. Okay? And so yesterday, I was doing a bunch of typing and all that, and I was up hella early like I am now. I was up around 4 something this morning. But yesterday I was up around 4, 3, whatever, and worked steadily, but was still dealing with residual of the yeast infection stuff, which is pretty much out of my body when you think about it. But I was tired, so I slept. I actually took a nap, ate some spaghetti, took a nap from, let's say, 10:30 till about 3, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. I slept for 5 hours yesterday in the middle of the day and still slept last night. I mean, it's still kind of night right now, but I'm up. And so is my dog. But then when I woke up, I realized something. That about Fritz Springmeier and preempting a narrative. Now, I don't know too much about Fritz Springmeier. We know about the mind control, undetectable mind control, the 13 bloodlines of Illuminati. Okay, right there, that should tell you when there's another name for the Rosicrucians, just like Freemasons, they're developing another context. Who's they? It could be someone that is researching stuff and they galvanized all this information, figured out all the different bloodlines. They could be in Hollywood or in politics, religion, science, and they're a whistleblower. Okay, there's that side of it. There's the other side of it that it's a psychological op to bring forth all this information so then somebody can control the narrative, and there's a place where you can feel like you're being how would I say it? You're being counterculture, you're woke, right? There's a place for those that want to be woke, but it's also a place for those to then laugh and jeer and say you're psychologically fucked. You know, why do people believe in conspiracy theories? You see in IFL science, you know, the type of person that believes in conspiracy theories and they do all their psychobabble shit. And then people are like, oh yeah, they're all fucked up. And so that's engineering another reality. That's engineering a way to get the information out and relieve someone or relieve the system of holding on to that secret. But how they characterize it still then doesn't hold them accountable when you think about it. But what's to hold accountable? It's a programming. it was a program that started a way long time ago, way before we were even born, and it was just carried through. It was like passed from genetic to genetic line to genetic line, but it was, but it's the system. The system has its own genetic lines. What is that? Well, when you're a professor teaching students, that's like a mother teaching a child. When you have a certain capacity for analyzing stuff, and the system has tested you and said, oh yes, you should be part of the GATE program, and they funnel you into a specific school, let's say like Stanford, and that school has engineering of all types, medical school, engineering. I mean, that's like the high level school. Everyone loves Stanford. And so then you are groomed to then carry on the traditions of 1940s and before, and all the way to antiquity, the Rosicrucians, the Jewish mystics, the Christian Gnostics, and the Hermetics. And so then you have all these different religions and offshoots of religions, and that is society. That is mind control. And so when I was thinking about Fritz Springmeier yesterday, when I woke up from my nap, that's when I realized, okay, are they trying to control the narrative by putting everything out there? And then, finally, with all this mind control stuff, and we're teaching our kids this stuff, and we're thrashing our kids, and we're hurting our kids, we're taking our kids to the hospital all the time, and we're molding our kids to be a specific archetype that eventually will be either a victim or a predator at some point because of how we're programming our children. Then we are developing psychotic, sociopathic, and victims and predators in our society. And there is nothing in between. There really isn't. And then you have to have so many protective measures. And you have to warn your girls and your boys, be careful of this, 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 and this. But then you're giving them all the assets to be a target. But then you're telling them, protect yourself from being a target, but be the target. It is such a trip. It's such a crazy thing. And women do it to their girls, men do it to their boys. It's something that even though you're trying to warn each other against, you are developing that programming to warn somebody against. That's what we do to our young women. We say, oh yeah, watch out for all these predators, but here, wear your booty shorts and look like a young lady that is like 30 years old, and and you're only 15, and you look like you're 30 years old. And so how does anyone know anything? And then you're sending off mixed signals. Oh yeah, treat me with respect, but here, let me show you all my assets. And that's the messed up part of our society. That's the programming that you get from mainstream media. That's the programming you get from the cartoons. That's the factory widgets you get out of certain companies that imagineer everything. Okay, they're engineering your imagination. There is definitely truth in advertising. You just gotta understand that's in plain sight. Okay, I know that sounds very Alex Jonesy, but I mean, it's true. When you think about it, do you really have an imagination, or have you been mind controlled into an imagination? Have you been mind controlled into your profession? Have you been biologically controlled into your blood type? Okay? And California is huge. I mean, let me tell you, California is such a huge state. And it's so influential. And then I was watching the Jodi Arias stuff, but then I was thinking, like, you know what? She's from Wairika, California. She's one that killed Travis Alexander, who was part of the LDS, but only was brought in by his grandma. But he came from, a drug-ridden family that he had a lot of hardships. And so then transitioning to the LDS and then going into prepaid legal and then being attached to a young girl who was also thrashed by her own mother when she was a teenager, and then was basically groomed to be very intellectual. You see, that's why I was so attracted to that case, because she is so fucking smart. Like, seriously, very well spoken. Better than me. And I'm not trying to compete, but I'm just like, this girl's well spoken. But then there's another side to her. There's the two sides to her. There's the well-spoken side, the soft-spoken side, and there's the sexual side, the sexual demon side that uses that to ensnare whoever that she can, feel that she needs to connect with or whatever. And so then you're like, oh shit, that's the programming. That's the programming of our young ladies. Some get more intense programming than others. And some try to break the programming so they get their diseases, they get their addictions. That's their coping mechanisms. Or their personality types, where they, they're more intellectual, they're more wittier, or they're super smart, okay? And so then people get lost in their archetypes because of how to cope with the programming that is breaking down. And that's pretty crazy. I mean, that's why, I say that it's hard for me to have anyone really represent the JJ world, because you're still under so much layers of programming. Like, seriously, under so many layers of programming. Even though you peel back one layer, there is still probably 100 more. And it's politics, religion, and science. It's your husband, your wife. Let me tell you, when you finally break away from most people, and you finally see for society for what it is, I can handle my husband trying to program me into his whatever way. I can handle it. I can counter it. I can work with it. I don't have to necessarily resist it all the time, but occasionally, But he definitely, wants me to be a certain way. And I let him do whatever he got to do, and let him figure out, and try to pick up any pieces that, or whatever, if he made a wrong decision. But I try to leave him to do whatever he needs to do. Okay? But you'll find that everyone is going to want to program you into their expectations, program you into an archetype, into something. And it's so pervasive and it's so insidious you don't even realize it. And you even program yourself into a personality type, into a way of being, so that way it pleases those around you. Okay? You can do that for your parents, for your community. Oh, I have 2 children. Here, I'm a good mother. Here, let me keep myself programmed to be a single mother who has 2 children, and I need somebody to reinforce it, to at least remind me why I do this, because this is really fucking hard. And when you have children, you can't just walk away. I mean, you can, but when you do have children on Facebook and then you walk away, you're going to get backlash because you walked away from the programming. And if you're worried about pleasing the world, you ain't going to fucking do that. Okay? And so some people have completely pigeonholed themselves, and now they are suffering, but they're trying to come off like, okay, I could do this. I'll power through. I'm a good person. And you see that, and they went into something they thought was going to come out great, and it ended up in whatever way, because your programming and somebody else's programming didn't work, and now you have 2 kids out of it, and now you're stuck with the kids, not like really stuck, but you know how that is, and now you have to power through. And let me tell you, it changes people. And so, yeah, and some of you are in the archetypes of being you can even hear the archetypes in just how people talk on Facebook. You could hear the archetypes. You could feel, it's like 1 or 2 words can tell you everything about a person. It's a trip. When you get so when you get so aware of how people operate and how you've operated, and then you can sense the hormones. You can sense it. And so that's why, you got to really peel back more than just a few layers. It's more than just feeling COVID. Because COVID is like, what is COVID? It's just a layer of your predisposed issues. You know how many times I had COVID? Okay, you know how many times I've had it? I've had it at least 5 or 6 times. Why is that? Because I had at least 5 or 6 issues that were predisposed in me that was woken up by the fucking COVID, by the frequencies, by the algorithms, by somebody else's strong DNA that somehow made it into my world and woke up the beast within. And I had to deal with the layer of beast. Other people hardly have any. Why is that? Because they have so much of the protection, so they don't evolve, so they're cured, and they're deteriorating, and that's what they expect. Okay, fine. Others have felt aspects of it, maybe felt it 1 or 2 times, but it never really got to the root of whatever their issue is, because of them being out there taking on other people's protection, other people's immunity. And so when you're out there all the time, and that's what I say to my JJ crowd, if you're out there all the time, you will pick up immunity from other people. There is such thing as herd immunity. That's why when you stay home more than not, and then you go out there, or someone comes in once a week, like my husband or your maid, and you hang out with them, they're out there in the community, and they're giving you all of their programming that was picked up along the way, it's going to upset your homeostasis and bring up whatever is predisposed inside, and that is the gift. if you understand how to respond to it. My dog feels it. Now I don't feel, not as bad. My husband now is a gift when you think about it. Before it was like, holy shit, this is a lot. Every time he would come home and my dog would shake, and I would, not because he did anything to her, it was because the energy. He's bringing home energy that is different. And then I would maybe feel tired or whatever, or if we wanted to go out on the weekend and hang out with people and I'm still dealing with predisposed issues, I'm like, fuck this. I'm tired of being sick. I'm trying to write a book. But now when I did go out the other day with people I haven't seen in a while, and I was there for like 4 hours, I felt the proteins developed, but they didn't like get me sick. I mean, I coughed a little bit, like I said before, but I did feel in the back of my throat, so I knew that my lymph nodes were working exactly the way they were supposed to. And then when I came home, I went to sleep, maybe coughed out a few, blew my nose a few times, but the next morning was when my body was getting rid of whatever I picked up. Okay, and so that's how your immune system is supposed to work, when you actually can feel your body taking on new worlds. And new worlds could be just proteins, because people spit out microscopic proteins that you're going to take in. That's why they say wear a mask if you're that susceptible or sensitive to the environment, because you will pick up some aggressive algorithms that you may not survive from. But at some point you're going to have to assimilate. But then if you assimilate, is that assimilation going to destroy you? Or do you stay home and finally deal with the evolutionary diseases that are in your body that are going to come up from frequencies or going out there in public? And are you going to respond to them properly and deal with them? And then strengthen your body to then develop your immune system the way it's supposed to. So when you do go out there, you're not taking in everything under the sun. And then when somebody asks me if you're missing tonsils, because tonsils is like one of your first lines of defense, okay? And you get rid of your tonsils, well, when you do get everything under the sun coming into your body because you've removed the first lines of defense, then you're going to have to feel all the different infections and get rid of it by blowing your nose, coughing stuff out, getting through the poop and getting it out. And you're going to have to feel the painful infection in your throat again. And you're going to have to let it happen. You just got to keep blowing your nose, because you're going to have to regrow those tonsils. It's going to be painful. Any kind of growth is painful. That's why people don't like infection. That's why they don't like they don't like cancer. Cancer is growth, but that is also B cells, immature B cells replicating so quickly. And then you have to allow your cells that are already at their parent cells to mature. And that's also painful. And you can't differentiate between the painful growth of B cell, immature B cell replication lymphoma, or the growth of your body trying to keep up with the growth of the children. And so you're going to have to then allow your body to blow out the immature B cells, the immature memories that aren't going to mature, that were too numerous when your body was not able to keep up to the level of the environment. And so, yeah, it's going to be painful. And so that's why I say, don't set your kids up to fail, people, but people do, because they don't understand infection. They taught their kid how to blow their nose, put their kid in a higher sodium diet. The kid isn't finicky, a finicky eater, and you now you have to make them eat all food so they can have the strong bones. Make them drink their milk. I drink milk now almost every night. Some days I'm like, I don't feel like drinking milk. But let me tell you, that is the growth. That is what strengthens your bones. That is what gives you the life. And then you bring in a diverse food supply: meat, milk, eggs, fruits, vegetables. This is not like, oh, I'm just going to eat McDonald's all the time, which is not a bad thing, but you got to have some kind of fruits, some kind of vegetables. You got to have more of a diverse thing. Than some of these kids are just so finicky and they only eat one or two things. And so their body is in deficit, malnourished. And so, hold on. Come here, sugar. You want to come over here? All right, come on. All right. And so cancer, disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders is the programming breaking down. Okay, so when you get cancer, disease, and chronic illness, you were programmed in a specific way, and then your body is breaking down, which is the programming breaking down, And so it's obviously getting in the way of your programming, right? Going to work, hanging out with your friends, doing all your things, whatever you do. And so then you go to the hospital to go get a reuptake of whatever, or go get oncology or surgeries or other types of remedies and protocols so you can get back in the game. But then how long can you be doing that, right? So, and then when you're looking for remedies and surgeries in the medical holistic system, you're trying to regain the programming, but at some point, your body can't take any more programming from somebody else. Okay, so when you program yourself, you'll know your limitations and you'll set boundaries, and then you'll be disgusted by what you had to deal with to get there. And that's after I had the two infections, the COVID and the pneumonia. And that was like at the end of July, middle of August. And that was an insane experience. And then you'll be angry. Once you actually finally break free from the mycoplasmic monster, you'll be so angry because you know what you had to deal with. You know, when I'm sitting at the sink trying to do dishes and I can't even stand for longer than 5 minutes, where I had to sit down, just doing anything was just so much work. And it was hard. And I was tired. Okay? And then you'd be angry and then realize the truth is self-evident. The aging process is a slow degradation of the breakdown of the programming. And so when these kids are managing disease and they're just going into college and whatever, how long you think they're going to have before that disease destroys them? You got to take care of your health first before you go into any kind of college or career field, because in this environment, there is no telling when that shit's going to come to surface and take you down. And now, you know, you just paid, let's say you just paid $60,000 for an institution and you had the money, you didn't get a student loan. Well, all that money that your parents mortgaged, you know, for their house is going to go to waste because now you can't go to school because you're at home battling a disease that you could have preempted a couple years ago and gone through it. And it might have taken a couple years for you to figure stuff out. But oh my God, everything is, you know, what people are in such a hurry to get to college because it's all that timeline. When you're 23 years old or 21 or 22 or 19, you're supposed to be in college. And you don't even have time to deal with your predisposed issues when you're like 19. You barely even knew you had them. Okay? And that's all by design. That's strategy. That's the system strategy of getting you when you're young. What is it? Programming you when you're young and getting the best minds out of people, you know, getting their fresh ideas. It's like the parasites going after the host. And so the professors are like the parasites trying to find the host of these children and exploit them and take their minds, you know. And some will survive college, others won't. Or they'll have some kind of debilitating issue and then they stay in the college system, you know, let's say like Stephen Hawking or any of those that have a lot of issues and they're used for their mind and their body goes. And so, you know, so that's why they really go after the young. That's why they worship the young. That's why Imhotep was a representation of worshiping someone who only had 20 years, when you think about it, on that earth, but had a bunch of information. But now is Imhotep's alchemy really appropriate for this day and age? Or are we going to keep repeating history? We're going to go and clean the petri dish again from 7.9 billion to 500 million and then it'll grow again and then get out of hand because people are getting greedy. I don't know, but that's kind of what it's looking like. You know, if you look at history of the rise and fall of civilizations, you know, Atlantis, where's Atlantis? Oh, it's drowned. Somebody did a whole flood and drowned Atlantis because Atlantis was too, I don't know, macabre or too dark, something. And so the aging process is a slow degradation of the breakdown of the programming, okay? So slight you don't realize it. So reverse psychology is if you come out with it first and admit whatever was done, then you can control the narrative. You see, you know, if my mom or anyone in my world apologized for whatever and said this and said that, and you know, would I have gone down these rabbit holes and gone this way, or would I have been an okay person? Oh, shoot, you know, because if someone says, sorry, I apologize for whatever I've done that caused you this and that, and then we have a happy medium, we have a great relationship, and I do whatever, and I do my thing, and all of that, and I do the jelly juice world, and everything is great, and my mom says, oh, yeah, I'm not going to do jelly juice, but I applaud that what you're doing and all this other stuff. I wouldn't be going down this rabbit hole of understanding Silicon Valley and the mind control bullshit and all that stuff and coming up with all these memories. I would feel guilty. I would feel guilty by bringing it up. I'd be like, nah, she's a changed person. She's a changed person. And so those that are too fucking proud to say anything, apologize for whatever, then you leave yourself open for someone to finally go, you know what, fuck this person, not literally, but, get so mad where they don't care now how you're characterized. Because you didn't control the narrative. If she would have controlled the narrative and came out with it first and controlled that narrative, I wouldn't even be talking about this. I wouldn't be going down this hit. But that's where arrogant people shoot themselves in the foot when they don't apologize for their shit. And so the person's like, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to say everything because I got nothing to lose. When you have something to lose, like a relationship that you respected for how many years, and then and then you lose it, yeah, then you have nothing to lose. You'll say whatever. But if you're hanging out with someone, you respect them, and that's the thing, is that's with relationships anyways. When you're hanging out with people and you love them or whatever, or you're dependent upon them, you're not apt to say anything that's going to say anything that's going to hurt them, quote unquote hurt them. And so that is the jail of relationship, is that even if there's something wrong or something should have been accounted for in that relationship, you're not going to say anything, and that's what keeps the secrets going. That's the secrecy. That's the secrecy of silence. And so maybe, I don't know, I some people are arrogant. Can I assume that was the intention? No. Because, no. There is no way anyone could have predicted that the salt and the water and the pain would now turn into something like this. There's no way to anticipate that. I didn't even anticipate that. Because if that were the case, Dr. Phil wouldn't put me on his show. Because they had to have known that all that stress would either destroy someone or make them so fucking strong that they find a way to strategize and call them out for all their shit. I don't think they anticipated that humans are so fucking strategic, that some humans are too smart for their own good. Am I saying I'm too smart for my own good? No. We're in the age of evolution, the age of experience. We're in a revolution evolution. All this shit's coming out when you have the Pope going to Canada to go apologize to the indigenous folks for torturing their children. That's kind of the direction we're going. And so don't you think the conspiracy community was had by those who came out with the secret information first, intentionally fed people the shocking information and let them run with it, and then turn around and slapped them when they took it too far? I mean, look what happened to Alex Jones. I don't know who fed Alex Jones the initial information for him to get onto InfoWars and become what he was and what he became. I mean, but then he got a lot of fame and fortune from it. So when you get a lot of fame and fortune, they let you run with it. They let you take it so far. You see how far you're going to take it. And then when you take it so far and think that you're invincible, just like January 6th, everyone out there thought that they were invincible. They can go and take down the government. And then, bam, the system slapped right back. And then the justice system, which was already embedded, everyone knows the justice system. You can't go and try to overthrow anything. And you can't go and try to commandeer your way into the Capitol or anywhere else. Then people were, put to jail, indictments. I mean, even I guess Donald Trump thought he was invincible. I mean, it's so hard to say what is staged and what is whatever and what is where they set somebody up to think that they have the upper hand and let them run with it and then turn around and slap them later. I'm telling you, there's so many different things but they're all relevant because there's probably a truth to every bit of it. But you just got to realize that there's so many different ways that you can get people to react, to see how they would react to a situation, how far they'll take it. So that's why I'm saying, that's why I am autonomous. I'm not around anyone except for my husband and my dog, really, and maybe a few friends occasionally, acquaintances, all that stuff. But I'm not trying to cannibalize anyone. I'm not trying to mind control anyone. Um, you know, uh, I yeah, and I'm saying live within the law, live within the confines of the law. Pay your taxes, pay your bills, do something productive for yourself and for humanity if possible. Find a way to realize that you are mind controlled, and that's it. And so there's not going to be any fear of somebody, mischaracterizing your intentions. When you're not working with people, no one can mischaracterize what you did behind closed doors, because, when you work with people have their squabbles behind closed doors, but then when it all comes out, in a court system, because one took one to court, then you really don't really know what happened. You hear both sides, but there's so much that's not said. Okay, how much can you remember in any kind of business relationship if it's like over like 2, 3, 4, 5 years? It was crazy enough when I was putting together my legal briefs for my court cases that I both won, by the way. I won both of those cases, and it was all by fucking default. No one wanted to go up against me in court. But I put together detailed documents of emails and texts and screenshots of this, and this. Okay? That's what it takes. But not everybody can remember everything. If your interaction is mostly one-on-one, then how do you remember everything that's said unless you recorded the whole conversation? So you know the feeling of what was going on, but you really can't remember exactly what was said. But when everything is electronic, okay, then you can kind of do screenshots. But even then, then what are you doing? I mean, really, how is that really a relationship? Okay, so you don't want to get into relationships where you have to look at that potentially in the future. You might have to record today's conversation so it can be used against them later on. That fucking sucks. No, that sucks. So if you're going to be in any relationship, make sure you're going to sit with it unless they're completely abusing you, and then you leave it, and then you just let it go and give them everything, because it's not worth fighting for stupid shit. And that's the thing. So then when you cut down all the relationships, when you think about it, most of them, then you are not only protecting the world, but you're protecting yourself, because humans do have a propensity to want to take over somebody else. And I know, I'm aware about myself. I know that I'm very influential, so the less that I work with people, the better off they are, and me too. And I'll save myself a whole lot of rigmarole, okay? Okay, so you're living in a world of strategy of engineered realities. Because as you've seen, programming breaks down, and so many who have been heavily programmed by Hollywood, politics, religion, and science, do speak out, and then someone has to control how that lands in your world. So I'm speaking out. I'm saying, oh my God, we don't have to die from preventable diseases. We could regrow our arms and legs and whatever. And, I'm just saying all the stuff that's like, what the fuck, you all? And so they go on Dr. Phil and say this, and then the TV doctors then make sure that they make fun of those who have been heavily programmed, making them out to be like they are psychotic. Okay. That's what you get when you go against the grain and you don't have a fully formed argument. But when you have ideas and you have a relatively, logical way of looking at things, because you see the possibility, you haven't seen how you're going to get to that possibility, but it's possible, then, you're not going to have a well-formed argument, and someone's going to exploit that. Especially if the system that is completely the opposite, already has all their little duckies in a row, and the programming embedded into society, and then they have the upper hand, and they can characterize you in any way they can and they want, and that's what happened on Dr. Phil, that's fine. That's an initiation when you think about it. That's an initiation to see how much you can handle the stress, to then prove or fold and say, okay, I was wrong. I'm sorry, I was wrong. No, I wasn't wrong, and I'm not sorry. And I proved that, the use of antibiotics is why people don't live indefinitely or regrow their arms, legs, and limbs and organs that were missing or born without them. Antibiotics is anti-life. How the fuck can you live indefinitely when you're taking antibiotics every fucking day for something that you don't want to feel? How can you live indefinitely when you've closed off your system because you don't want to poop, fart, or have diarrhea, or throw up, or blow your nose? So you're taking all the cold medication. How the hell do you live indefinitely when you close off your system? And so I've developed and figured out, after all that stress, all that mind control shit, I figured out exactly how to justify my claims without showing you proof that here's an organ. Here, let me cut off my arm so I can show you how to regrow. There's no reason to do that, but that was always been proposed. Oh, Jillian, why don't you just, take off your arm and then show us how you can regrow it? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. But logically, you can counter this argument without having to actually experience it. See, you don't have to experience everything. Some of it's just straight logic. Antibiotics, anti-life. Okay? And so, but in reality, the TV doctors and everyone who makes fun of other people have also been heavily programmed. And so at the end of the day, we're all just reinforcing the same programming until you step away from everything. But like I said, but still pay your taxes, live within the confines of the law, pay your bills, and be a productive member of society. So you don't have to buck the system. You don't have to exploit other people or harm them with supplements and pills and powders and detoxes and promise them that they're going to lengthen their telomeres if they take this, and this. But you have many people who are bucking the system who are also harming their friends and family with supplements and detoxes and pills and powders and remedies and antibiotics. Okay? And so this is when you want to be on the outside looking in. When you're in it, you will suffer. All right? So I'm on the outside looking in, and I'm okay with that. Because if you're on the inside looking out, you're like in jail. When you're on the inside looking out, you're in jail. So being an insider isn't always the best thing, though. Some people say, oh yeah, I'm an insider, I know stuff. You're in a jail. Because if you know stuff and you come out with it prematurely, they'll thrust you out. Then you'll be on the outside looking in, but then you'll think that's excommunication. You'll feel lost out there in the cold when you're not on the inside, right? So then even when you're on the inside, you could be very careful on how you act and interact. And so if you can admit that you've either been mind controlled or a part of the program of mind controlling other people, then you have released yourself from the programming. And thank you. And that's the thing, is how are you going to characterize that you've been mind controlled? Because that sounds so like you're so MK Ultra. Because that's the thing with MK Ultra, there's people who have been heavily mind controlled and they really glitch, and those are like the Jodi Ariases. Those are like the Charles Mansons, the Kaczynskis, the Ramirezes, Richard Ramirez and Charles Ng and Dahmer and Gacy and Bundy and all the serial killers. They've been heavily mind controlled. Okay? And then there's some they're mind controlled a little bit. And they buy into the programming of how to raise your kids. They buy into the programming of the doctors. They bought into the programming of everything in society. And then you're like, well, then how's to live if you... Well, that's the thing. You can look back on, like hindsight's 2020. You're like, well, shit, I was mind controlled to do this, and this. And then look how my kid turned out. Look how this turned out. And so then then when you are looking back at what you did and then how things turned out, then wouldn't that be valuable information for the next generation of people, whether it's your kids, whether it's somebody else's kids, whether it's another grown-up who is thinking about having children? And is it worth them having children when they have predisposed issues? And they're going to be going through some hell trying to raise that kid in this crazy society? And so if you can admit that you've been either mind controlled or part of the program of mind controlling other people, then you have released yourself from the programming. If you cannot admit either, then you're a part of the problem. If you can admit both, then it means that you've owned up to you being mind controlled and you're trying to mind control your children and everyone around you. And now you're going to step away and give people... Now, this is the thing. This is where you're going to be different if that's where you want to go. Is before I became autonomous and I worked on my own... Okay. Before I became autonomous and I worked on my own... Okay, I don't know what the hell I'm saying, but I changed the JJ protocol from converting others. Okay? So I became autonomous. I worked on my own. And I changed the protocol from converting others to finally being an example. Don't tell people, show people right on your wall. Okay? You got to show people. And how do you show people? Because that's where you have to find, because there's so much to this. So you have to find a specific fulcrum, a specific point to come from. Because you can be scattered and be like, okay, you could be a parrot of me, but you don't want to sound like me. You don't sound like a clone. So you got to come from a specific point, whether it's a wife, mother, or, somebody, a culture, whatever, and come from that point and work your way out. And then you identify all the programming within your society, within your culture, within your family, within even your role. Okay? And you identify the programming, and then where do you see yourself? Where do I see myself? Well, first I got to get this book written, because I have a huge history that I have to write about, not have to, but I must write about to then, for my own well-being, that also is going to then help the world too, so they can stop suffering or control their own suffering. But what place are you carving out for yourself? What kind of project somewhere in the future are you going to develop when you get to that certain point? There's got to be a reason why you're putting stuff out there. Now instead of just doing streams of thought, there's got to be a direction to it. Okay? Because there's got to be a reason. Again, it's not just throwing up on the world. It's developing something. Whatever. And it's to be something, who knows? It could be something that, going to school and doing something. But people doing that anyways, which is fine. But if that is a milestone that you want to reach, then do it. Okay? And how are you going to weave in something else? Maybe you thought that you never could because your test scores before you tested that, you tested really low in this area, and that it's biological that clouded your mind so you couldn't concentrate. That's what learning disabilities are, is because you have so many antibodies and so much disease in you that you can't think and take in information the way everybody else can or other people can. And so finally, when you clear the pipes and you go through the pain and you go and retake the test and you learn and you study for it, and now you find that studying is so much easier. When before, when someone else had the same issue, they were diagnosed with a certain condition, and now you've just overcame that. And here you go. Now you just passed this test. Now you're at 90% instead of like 50%. I mean, these are the type of things that you have to show where you were before, whether it's cognitively, biologically, intellectually, and show where the improvement is, and show that this is going to be an ongoing thing. And who knows, the sky is the fucking limit. But you have to deal with yourself physically first, biologically first, physiologically first, because that's the root of how you're going to now have the world at your feet. The opportunities are going to be endless when you can study something and understand it in like a day, in like a week, in like a month. And so you can get certified in everything. And then you're the entrepreneur. That's what Stanford is all about, is engineering realities and understanding the programming out there. And you can still take on the programming and still evolve the programming simultaneously. But biologically and biophysically and physiologically, you have to get to the root issue of what your block was. And that's going to take a while. Okay? And so before I became autonomous and I worked on my own and changed the JJ protocol from converting others to finally be an example, don't tell people, show people right on your wall. Okay? Because I'll tell you, when I did the ASVAB twice, I did the ASVAB the first time. Well, actually, I took the GED twice. I took the GED the first time. I didn't pass the math, but I passed everything else. And so that was great. And then I took the ASVAB twice. I took it once and I got a really low score. And so I was in food service. And then later on, with a few years of college or a few months of college under my belt, then I took the ASVAB, which is the military entrance exam, to then go and place you. I took it again and I scored higher. And this time I can get into human resources, which then gave me the office, the computer skills. I was in human resources. So then I went to a tech school that showed you how to use Microsoft Office, how to go and build a file, how to go in and label a file and transfer files. And so then when I went, so then after that, then I went into the temp agencies, and they had their modules, their learning modules. And you learn Microsoft Word, you learned Excel, and you keep testing yourself and scoring so that way you can get the job that requires that you have some kind of MS Office and MS, whatever skills. And so then you keep training yourself, you keep training yourself, you keep training yourself and take classes here and there. And so that's how you build your skills. You see where you were before and you see where you are now. And it does take drive. It does take trying to find ways to measure your improvement intellectually. Okay? And so there's ways that you can do that with the system. And you don't have to deteriorate. Because let me tell you, when you finally deal with your physiological issues and your predisposed issues, and you get to an amazing awakening, you're not just like, oh, I cured my this, or I reversed just this. It's more than just the different diseases that you know about. There's ones that you don't even know about, that you don't even know about. And it might take a few years. Okay? But you have to give yourself time. I gave myself 6 years. 6 freaking years of doing solely this with a few distractions that I had to go and deal with. Okay? But what really finally forced me to evolve and see what I really am was the COVID. That COVID just really woke up everything. It woke up the headaches. It woke up my own co-infections. And I faced it. And I strategized how to get the poop out. I strategized how to get the mucus out. Bringing on all the different predisposed issues from all the different floating viruses out there is a gift. But you have to give yourself the time. And if you're all about traveling and socializing, and you're all about building your future with school and this and that, and you haven't dealt with those predisposed issues, there's no guarantee that you're not going to fall from cancer, disease, and chronic illness in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. You could graduate college with honors because you're young, and then you get first year into your new profession, and you're high up in the new profession, getting paid $100,000, $200,000 a year, just your first year entry level. And then one day, bam, you just got hit with an autoimmune disorder, or you just got hit with a major aggressive cancer. That's when dreams get dashed, because people were gambling that they were able to hold out without facing their predisposed issues. And so it's better to know that if your parents have passed away from certain things, or your grandparents, and they had Parkinson's, they had all these different diseases and all that, you know that's in your genetic line. You're going to have to deal with it. If you don't deal with it now, you'll deal with it later, and it will come out in inopportune times. Okay? My disease came out it was in 2000. I remember when I first felt, holy shit. That wasn't in 2000, it was 1998. 1999. That's when shit started happening as far as PMDD. And that colored my future. That completely fucked me up. I mean, there were signs that it was going to happen because I was just all over the place. And so that's why you just now, if you can, I don't know, some of you have to be out there. It's going to be difficult. When you're out there under herd immunity, it'll take a stronger disease to wake up stuff. And when that happens, you then have to finally say, okay, I take care of myself and deal with the back-to-back infection and not try to go back to work. Now you just, I don't know. It's going to take a lot of strategy to figure out how you're going to get the ultimate benefit of purging the predisposed issues, so that way when you do finally get into the career field that you want, you won't be taken down by a very deep-rooted childhood disease that you forgot you had. That will be debilitating. I had 3 weeks of that shit. If I was in a job that I had to be back at, I would have taken some kind of antibiotic, and then I would have made that monster bigger. It would have metastasized later and turned into a disease later. And that's where people are trapped when they are in the jobs that they're in. Because even if you're working from home, you have to be on your game working from home. I mean, just because you work from home doesn't mean that you're going to have it easier. Maybe a little bit, but you need to sleep. You know where my ideas come from? And when I get these realizations was when I went to bed around 10:30, 11 yesterday, and I got up at 3, and I realized that, oh my God, the whole Fritz Springmeier and the MK Ultra and him, whether he's an agent to preempt it and then control the narrative and then develop a conspiracy community so that way everybody has a place to feel like they're doing something, and then somebody else can laugh at them, and that's how you divide society. Or was he the actual whistleblower? But then, why would you call it the Illuminati? Why not call it the Rosicrucians? Why not call it the Freemasons? Why is there 3 different names for the same thing? Oh, because there is a lot of engineered realities out there. DARPA, okay? All the psychological operations. These words don't just materialize. It's not like Fritz Springmeier invented the word Illuminati. It's shit. If everything can be traced back to Fritz Springmeier, then where did he come from? But we hear Alex Jones talk about the Illuminati, Freemasons and all that stuff. And everybody else talk about it. Where did that word actually originate? And then who was that person? Where did he come from? What's his background? Who told him? See, these are the things people don't ask those kind of questions. And so I'm just like, dude, you've been mind controlled. You're mind controlling others. Until you can admit that you've been mind controlled and you're mind controlling others and you're into programming, then you'll perpetuate it. You will perpetuate it. But I don't want you going on Facebook and say, I've been mind controlled. I don't want you throwing up on people. But I want you to identify your programming, understand it, understand where you were, where you are now, where you want to be, and then interweave that somewhere. But that's going to take you figuring out who the hell you are and what you want to be and where you've been. And that is a lot of soul searching. That's a lot of working on yourself. Okay? But also organizing your video diaries so you do talk about what you're dealing with and have some kind of theme to it. Okay? Have some kind of theme to it. Am I mind controlling you? Some could say that. But you still here's the thing. You still gotta pay your bills. You still gotta be a productive member of society. You still have to pay your taxes. You still have to take care of yourself and your kids and the people around you that are dependent upon you. And so how are you going to do it and also make sure that you don't die in the process? And so there's got to be a certain kind of strategy to it. But these are the options. There's so many options out there. And there's so many scenarios. And so I took away the infrastructure of mind control and left the choices of information up to you and given you all types of scenarios that could happen. I mean, that could happen. Well, that you're in, you could be going to a job every single day. You could be working on the road every single day. You could be working from home. You can be going to some offsite place. How are you going to get to the different levels? And can you take 3 weeks off because you got hit with a co-infection? Do you have that luxury where you can take 3 weeks off, 3 weeks off when you get hit with some kind of debilitating disease that you're going to have to stay home and feed and get the poop out and blow your nose? Or are you going to have people at your work going like, oh my God, where have you been? And where are you? We needed you. We had to replace you. You're fired. See, and if you don't have that luxury to take off as much time as you need to take care of yourself as far as sickness without taking antibiotics and remedies or even jelly juice, well, that's the jail that people live in. And again, with my husband, he chooses. He knows. It's funny when I asked him, I don't know, we were talking about age and what we look like at our age, and I'm like, I'm gonna be 49. I asked him, well, at what point do Asians look like they really hit the wall from being age? He's like, oh yeah, 49 or 50. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. And I'm like, it's tough for women this nowadays that they don't age well nowadays. They're aging pretty fast. But men age very well in our society. And so I said, okay, so I said, I'm not going to hit the wall and turn really like crazy looking, at 49, 50, 51, to whatever, all the way up. Okay, so at some point he'll see that I'm not going to age. I'm not going to hit the wall. And so until, and my dog, she's not going to age. She's not going to hit the wall. She's actually becoming younger and younger and younger, and she's purging out the scar tissue and the memories and all that trauma. She's going to stick around. So in the next 10 years is when he'll realize that, okay, I was right. And by that time, hopefully, that'll be halfway into almost his retirement, where he could retire at 60-something. I mean, well, actually, it's really 70 or 67. It's better to retire later than earlier. But by the time that, I keep him alive long enough and tell him, okay, try to avoid any over-the-counter remedies, no more NyQuil, no more aspirin, no more any antibiotics. Just stay away. If you get sick, just stay away from the medications. Just ride it out. Fucking ride it out. Hopefully by the time he retires, where he's home, then maybe he can finally become a whole person, and it will be painful. Because he'll now see the evidence that my dog and myself are still going to be around. Okay? And that he has access to this. I mean, I can give him all the access in the world to this. He still has to deal with it and do it himself. But it may take another 10 years for the proof, right? Without somebody saying, oh, you just have nice skin, or oh, you just got great genetics. No, I had shitty genetics. Just look at some of the pictures a couple of years ago. I had to work on getting rid of all the little demons inside of me that were morphing me, make me look like, I had a demon inside of me. Okay, so you guys, it's now is the time that you have the time. Let your careers wait. Let all that shit out there, the traveling, the careers. If you can get like just a little job that pays you a little bit of money, that you can get, that if you had to, you can quit for 3 weeks and you put some money aside, that if you had to be at home for 3 or 4 weeks, that you could, and if you didn't get paid for it, that you could afford to be off. Okay? And have that little job and not have a lot of expenses, and know that this is just a throwaway job. This is just a job that's going to get you through until you reach that point of where you dealt with the root issue of your situation. And you scale down your lifestyle. Scale it fucking down. Where it's just, a small car with your insurance. Maybe you don't even make payments on that car. Maybe you do. I don't know. But a small little tiny apartment somewhere, or in a relatively okay neighborhood, don't have a lot of rich things. You don't want people stealing from you. Try not to accumulate too much baubles. And then you sock money away, because when you have to be down for your sickness, when you have to be down, holy shit, it might be a month or 2. It might be. And you have to plan for it. And so if if you're spending, $1,000 a month on expenses, then you should have at least, 5,000 or so, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 in your savings account. So if you have to take a month off, 2 months off, you can afford to. And then if they fire you, then go find another job and say, well, I had freaking COVID and this is my situation. That's why I got fired. If it ever came to that. Okay? But there is a strategy to this, and people are getting paid more nowadays. And so at some point, your predisposed issues will come up, and then you need to have the time to deal with them, and it will be painful. But as soon as you go and get all the medical shit, all the holistic shit, you're taking yourself back to square one again, and hopefully you can survive. But if you get used to being cured, yeah, the train's left the station. It'll be harder to come back from that. All right, I'm going to go. I got shit to do. You guys have a good day. Bye.